Hello, everyone. My name is Rihanna Gutierrez, and I'm a Senior Solutions Marketing Manager here at QuickBase. And I'm absolutely thrilled that you are joining us today for this informative session at Empower to embark on a journey of transformation and progress. I'm accompanied today by a panel of industry experts, and we're going to spend some time exploring how innovative strategies, digital tools, and forward-thinking approaches are reshaping the landscape of housing administration and neighborhood programs. Before we get started, I just want to preface, if you guys have any questions, please go ahead and drop those in the chat during our presentation, and we'll try to answer these for you at the end of our discussion. I'd like to now turn it over to each of our panelists to provide a brief introduction and highlight any specific initiatives that they may be supporting within their agency. Annie, if you'd like to start.
Sure, thanks. My name is Annie Holder. I'm a senior analyst with the San Diego Housing Commission, and that's our local housing authority here in San Diego. I work for our Housing Innovations Department, and we deliver direct service programs to individuals at risk of or actively seeking or experiencing homelessness. So we provide an entire portfolio of direct services, which include housing search and placement, case management, and financial assistance, which comes in the form of moving costs or rental assistance. Right now, we have our portfolio of programs covers everything from light touch walk-ins to prevention and diversion, developing landlord relationships, and all the way up to long-term assistance, which is 3 years of rental assistance and case management. My role on the team is to manage all of our data collection and reporting. Our staff is about 30 right now, and we run 10 programs that serve about 1,400 households each year.
Great, thank you for that. Gibson?
Hey, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Gibson Yimbura. I serve as the Director of Innovation with the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment, to which we are tasked with providing services to 99 neighborhood councils, which comprises about 1,800 Angelenos who participate within the neighborhood council system to provide civic engagement and improve awareness throughout the city of Los Angeles.
Thanks. Thank you both for those introductions. Without further ado, let's go ahead and kickstart our discussion. And I want to go back to kind of day one within your neighborhood programs or housing programs before you transition to a more dynamic way of working. What were some of the challenges that you faced or that you were seeking solutions for? Gibson, I'll start with you on this one.
Some of the challenges have always been being one of the challenges within obtaining digital services within the city of LA has been engagement. How do we make sure that Angelenos are aware of what type of how they can access their local city services? How can they stay engaged? And how can they stay informed? And how do they know that their quality of life issues can be accessed by the city of Los Angeles? So that's always a big challenge within the neighborhood council system. And how do we make sure we leverage digital tools to provide that information, making sure that they know that whenever they have any needs, they know who to get in contact with. They know that whenever they submit a complaint, that complaint is tracked, and how that they can continue sort of stay engaged with their elected officials. So I think that's always been one of the first challenges that has always remained as a key issue within our department. And we're always looking into different ways to use different digital tools and making sure that we are able to address that issue of engagement and just connectivity between elected officials and Angelenos throughout the city of LA.
Annie, how about you?
Yeah, thank you. So when I think back to day one, our department, we were funded about 7 years ago to start doing direct service. That was a new initiative within the Housing Commission. And so a lot of our challenge was like, how do we actually build this department? How do we deliver services, something that we've never done before? And specifically, we are required by HUD to use a community-wide HMIS database. And that meant that we had to deliver service, or we had to collect all this information outside of our own systems. And we ended up having to use 3 different databases. That HMIS system, we receive referrals from our local 211, and all of our financial processes have to go through Yardi because we also administer Section 8. But none of these 3 databases really allowed us to track or collect any program-specific information. So the activities that we were running were like collecting intake documentation, doing household budgets for our clients, getting more detailed information about housing placement details. And so because none of these systems were able to do those specific functions, and then on top of that, they were not connected, it meant that our staff really had to do duplicate data entry into all of those systems. They had to manually populate Word documents and then send them out for signatures. We were using Excel documents to capture that budget information for clients. And then in order to have really comprehensive information about our programs, we had to pull data from all those systems, combine it, and then report on it. So that was a pretty big challenge. That was one of the major things that we were trying to solve for. And then I would say the second one is that we really wanted to have a system that would allow us to scale. We knew that we were going to be growing over time, and we needed something that would allow us to, as we develop new programs, really quickly implement them. And that's kind of the second major challenge that we were trying to solve for.
Great. Thank you both for sharing those. Now that you've kind of adopted this more dynamic operational approach, right, where you're leveraging tools that are digital, automation, and data analysis, how has that really transformed your neighborhood programs or housing administration compared to what you were traditionally doing? And then in addition to that, like what benefits have you observed from utilizing these technologies? Annie, I'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, so I'd separate those, and I have kind of a two-part answer to it. So first is from our case manager's perspective. Like we really, kind of the benefit that we're seeing is that it reduces administrative time. I was talking to you about them filling out all these Word documents and sending them out. So now we've automated all of that, and we're using QuickBase to populate about 12,000 documents annually. We're also generating our payments, so that's about 3,500 payments annually that they're not typing in one by one into these separate databases. We estimate that it's reduced that duplicate data entry by about 25–26%, which is really awesome. And while those numbers are really great, what's more important about that administrative burden is that it frees up our staff time so that they can spend it with clients. That's really what the basis of our program is providing that case management and moving households to housing stability. And that's a really good investment of our staff time as opposed to all of this administrative work. Something else that I'll mention too is that because we're able to pull data and kind of reuse it from our HMIS system, it means that we're not asking clients these sensitive, kind of invasive questions over and over again, which is in line with best practices and helps us be as trauma informed as possible. So that's one big benefit of it. And then I would say from my role, from our data side and program performance perspective, it's really allowed us to shift from pulling all that data together, trying to make sense of it, having it have some continuity to it. And our focus is now more on making better data-driven decisions and having a deeper understanding of our program performance. So just like having a database that collects all of this information in one place, we're able to have, I was going to say deeper understanding of what's happening. Like when we have different touches with clients, all of that information is just recorded automatically. It doesn't require additional data entry from our staff. So that helps us collect timelines. How long does it take for us to intake a client? How long does it take for them to get housed? How many times do they have to apply to a unit before they're successfully housed there? So that's a really big change for us. It's great that we don't have to do any additional work to collect that level of information about our programs. And the last thing that I'll add is just recently I was thinking about how our staff have really kind of committed to the database. They're now asking me for reports. They're like, hey, can it do this? Can I have a report so I can self-audit before you pull my file? Can I get access to my clients, like housing affordability level? And that like sense of curiosity and about how they can deliver better services is also a huge benefit of the database that we've implemented.
Great, thanks for sharing that, Annie. And Gibson, how about you?
So I think one of the key things that we was, I want to just add on to a few things that Annie had mentioned. One of the advantages we've seen is actually accessibility. One of our big challenges within the city is making sure that we're able to meet the needs of meet people where they're at. I think we always strive to make sure that we can find technological tools that enable us to meet Angelenos where where they don't have to travel miles in order to come to downtown City Hall in stringent LA traffic. I think one of the big challenges has always been that in this new day and age, we want to make sure that whenever any piece of tech that we incorporate within our workflow enables us to help actually improve that in that dynamic, and making sure that whenever we improve accessibility for all for Angelenos who are in need the most, we improve accessibility for all Angelenos who always come in interaction with the neighborhood council system, and then specifically neighborhood council board members as the elected officials, volunteer elected officials. They know that they can rely on the department whenever they need any issues. On the other issue, I think one of the big things that just to add on to what Annie has mentioned is improved service delivery. With the ability to track casework on a case-by-case basis, we're able to identify which casework is urgent, which casework is medium-term, and which casework is long-term. Within the city, one of the big challenges within policymaking is not policymaking requires time, and sometimes Angelenos do not have that time. So how do we make sure that we identify which services we can address now based off of the digital tools that we do have at the moment, and which tools do we have to figure out and identify based on how we track our casework, our engagement, that in the long term we'll be able to still not forget those people who came to us seeking our service in the beginning. We also want to make sure that we are able to identify what those are. So making sure that we have a streamlined data system has enabled us to sort of come up with an identification system such as that, and the ability for QuickBase to help us sort of have plugin tools and using the issue all those elements enables us to actually identify how we can leverage, how we can provide sufficient service delivery on different scales of time. So we always want to make sure that we do that balance. And also, I think just kind of something Annie has mentioned, employee input. I think one of the key things that as we continue to improve and streamline some of our workflows and processes has been employees actually coming up to management and asking, hey, we want to add this tool in our workflow. How can we do that? So we are able to, as a small neighborhood department, we're able to create a small work group and then work with specific tools to which they are able to sort of come up with an engagement, do an assessment on a 6-month run, let us know if it's something that the department can take upon. So this gives us the ability to actually identify which specific tools are best useful, which are best within the department and which are most useful in terms of the service delivery as to what is our department designed to do based off of the city administrative plan for a department.
Yeah,
Great, thanks, Gibson. Did you have anything to add in addition to that?
I just wanted to add, yeah, it's really awesome to see staff sort of chime in and that ability to meet their needs and say, yeah, this isn't going to take us 6 months. We can just pilot what you've suggested and see if that works. That's a new way of approaching things for our agency for sure.
Great, thank you both for sharing that. So I want to shift gears a little bit here and talk about any obstacles or challenges you may have faced in implementing these digital tools and automations within your programs. Can you maybe touch on or share perhaps adoption issues? It sounds like both of you in your programs, your staff is really taking heed and excited about leveraging these tools, but I'd love to hear about any challenges you may have experienced along the way. Annie, I'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, so adoption is always tricky because it's change. So I would say that was a challenge, only in that people aren't quite sure what this tool is going to do for you. I think people are just hesitant when something new is getting introduced and the way that they're used to doing things is completely going to change. I am glad that we started with that. They have now come around and they see how useful that it is. The other major challenge I would say is that we are moving so fast all the time. We are always trying to respond to emerging needs in the community. And we have a whole portfolio of programs that are all sort of moving in different directions and evolving. And so when we implemented QuickBase, we found that there was not enough standardization across the department. We had kind of evolved into having different terms for the same actions based on the program or what staff member was referring to it. We started getting slight variations in the drafts of documents because staff were saving them to their desktops and making small changes. And so that was challenging in that it was very time consuming to try and pull that back into a template that we could use across the department, because we really wanted to create something that was malleable and we could pull together the pieces when we implemented a new program. So I would say it was a challenge in that it took some extra time to really dig through that and get standardization, but really databases and tools don't work unless you have common definitions all the way across. And yeah, I think as far as addressing some of the challenges, especially staff buy-in, it's always been my approach to ask staff what they need and get their input as processes are being developed. And so now kind of one of the actions that I always take is I get some advisors on the team that tell me how it works. I train them once it's implemented, I get their feedback. And one of the benefits I've found of doing it that way is that we have them like a support system within that program team, so they can act as a tutor and kind of help people iron out any kinks. I think the other way that I try and address the challenge of adoption or people kind of adjusting to new processes is having a ticket system so that they can always say, hey, this, like, stop, slow down, this isn't working. And so that we can try and solve that so they don't get caught up on it. Certainly when people get frustrated, that means that they don't want to use it. And so I try and smooth that over as quickly as possible. Yeah, I'm sure Gibson has some more to add.
And Annie, thank you for that. I think one of the key challenges I just want to add on into that is in our department, several challenges that arise is employee engagement with new data tools, understanding how many employees we have. Some folks have been here in our department for a long time, and also we have a wide array of new staff members. And this new staff members, it's also balancing how we implement a new piece of technology, a new data tool, and a new automated workflow process, I think is always key whenever you want to make sure you have buy-in from all employees and people within the department. So whenever you have that, we always want to make sure that we provide the ability for input, because I think one of the key challenges of any new data process is the ability for engagement from all employees and buy-in. And so how do we ensure that everybody has buy-in, and also how do they give input to making sure that they are able to use this process? So sometimes we also have to recognize as leadership within the department is some of the new tools that we do implement will not go the way we think that they're intended to work. Is also how do we address that challenge of if there's resistance internally in a new process that is intended to improve their workflow. And so how do we make sure that we continue to do that, and how do we improve that is always going to be a continuous challenge that we have to be cognizant of and be willing to face upon it, because if we do ignore that, we will not be able to get these tools to work as intended and the reason for implementing them. The other also processes for us within the neighborhood council system, we want to make sure that we simplify the process of all the digital tools that we use. As the city continues to having sort of databases when it comes to measuring quality of life issues, how do you call your service, getting service delivery? Why does that matter for Angelinos? Why does that matter for neighborhood council system? And you want to make sure that whenever we're simplifying or automating our workflows, we also simplifying what it means, right, in the process. I think it's understanding is, do people understand what we're talking about, what type of tool we're implementing, and how does it impact the quality of life? I think whenever we want to use a digital tool, we want to make sure that it answers that question. Do they understand what it is, and does it help them improve on their day-to-day issues? And whenever we're not able to answer that question, we definitely recognize that it's a challenge for that digital tool to have to create the benefit that we anticipate for it to have. And another setting also in the same conversation is setting expectations for these digital tools. We want to make sure that these digital tools are not being sold as the end all be all. We want to make sure that they're part of an incremental process, improving service delivery and making sure that the department is accessible. I think one thing that we always want to make sure. Also, as part of our department goal is empowering neighborhood council's members. We always want to make sure that whenever we set expectations, this enables us to, one, set the goals, understand what type of goals we're looking to attain, and making sure that we, at the end of the day, we have done our due diligence in understanding how this digital tool works within the neighborhood council. And also another challenge that we want to make sure that we continue addressing it is inequity. One of the key challenges of all these digital tools is, while hailed as improving service delivery, they also do disenfranchise a percentage of Angelinos. Based off of what we do, is our goal is to be accessible to all Angelinos. But the challenge of a digital tool is not everybody is able to have access to it, nor do they know how to use it. So how do we address those issues of inequity equity, and also digital literacy. And those are some of the obstacles we always look to making sure that we document, we assess, and we always do follow-up to make sure that we're continuously improving in an effort to making sure our digital tools and automation systems work within the department.
Great. Thank you, Gibson, for those. Annie, did you have anything to add to that, or you no?
No, he covered many of, I just
did.
agree with all of it. It's like very thorough, and it's really great when you get there, but it's a winding road. It's a lot to consider.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you both for sharing those insights. Let's go ahead and move on to the next question. We've talked a lot about how leveraging tools like QuickBase, automation and other digital tools have really helped you streamline processes internally. Could we each of you elaborate on how these enhancements have helped you improve service delivery? Gibson, you've talked a lot about accessibility as well, for your neighborhood or housing programs. Gibson, I'll start with you on this one.
So I think one of the key things that we continue to sort of input as one of our metrics is we also engage surveys. We also implement surveys within the neighborhood council system. We want to we try to do them every year, well, a couple times a year, to just kind of measure where the sentiment is at. We want to use that as a tool of asking people, do you feel like the department is doing a good job in implementing some of the things that are important to you and your needs? Also, we try to measure with the ability of QuickBase, we do our best to measure casework input based off of what type of needs or what requests are being submitted. I think based off of whenever we interact with Angelinas, when they call in on an issue or they come to our office or they email our public email, one of the key challenges is just making sure that we know is, are we measuring that casework that comes in? I think we always want to make sure in regards to that. We also take a look at certain things within the neighborhood council system. They are able to engage with city legislation, so they can submit something called community impact statements. And we built a tool that measures how each neighborhood council submits, how many they submit within the neighborhood council. So if at the moment a certain piece of legislation, for example, the city of LA is taking an initiative on AI. So right now, the Department of Information Technology within the city of Los Angeles has been tasked with providing a report that can be publicly accessed through the council file management system, and all neighborhood councils can give input on that. So we want to make sure that we measure how many points of communication. Are they opposing this measure of legislation? Are they in support of it? Are they asking for adjustments to it? Those also are metrics that we do use as a way to measure what is our improvement in how we disseminate information. Do folks know that this is what's happening on City Hall? And just kind of making sure and we also try to attach with, again, as I mentioned, with the surveys definitely go a long way for us in making sure that we measure satisfaction within the neighborhood council system.
Great, thank you for that, Gibson. Annie, I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, I think so a really major goal of our department is being able to create programs that effectively meet emerging needs in our community. And I think I've probably said this frequently already, but it's really about being nimble and responsive and implementing quickly. And so to dig in a little bit deeper with a specific example, about 1.5 years ago, City Council asked us to implement a program. And one of the goals that they set for us was to really learn about that program. So in using QuickBase and the way it enables us to aggregate data and pull things more easily and that spend more time on a deeper analysis of what was going on. A really big success for me as an analyst is that we were able to put together a briefing about what was happening as far as housing affordability for these households and the specific challenges that they were facing in San Diego's rental market. And then that data was then used by our executive management team. They took it to Sacramento to advocate on behalf of our clients to both describe the challenges that we're seeing and the funding that we will need ongoing to support programs for households like these. And I think that that's a really good example of how we're trying to use the data and the tools that we have, not for specifically that program, but also identify gaps within our current portfolio and make adjustments. Maybe there's particular populations that we can identify that aren't then we're finding that they're not meeting the eligibility criteria. So then with that information, then we can then pivot and create programs that maybe it's digital accessibility, they don't have email addresses because they're seniors, or maybe it's particular areas of the city that are underserved. And so I think in that way that having just access to better data and spending less time even just pulling together the basic program outcomes, it means that we can better serve our community and create accessible programs based on those, based on the needs that we're seeing.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Annie. Love hearing about how you and Gibson are both leveraging the data that you're able to access from tools like QuickBase to just really make more informed decisions and ultimately streamline, right, that service delivery to your clients. So love hearing those stories. One more question here for you guys. Looking forward, what opportunities do you foresee for further leveraging solutions like QuickBase to either, enhance the efficiency or the effectiveness in your housing and neighborhood programs? Annie, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so currently we are implementing something new to respond to a natural disaster that we had in San Diego recently. And I guess I think of that because we didn't have a referral process in place before. We created a referral system in QuickBase where we could use it as like cross-departmental collaboration. So everyone could see if a client had been referred to multiple programs, which helps us provide better service delivery. But because that was built in QuickBase when we had this natural disaster happen and we needed to quickly pivot and receive referrals for this sort of temporary emergency program, we were able to just sort of slightly modify that referral module and fit it into the needs of this new program. And I think that is the kind of work that we will continually do because we are asked to do sort of short-term interventions, and that's the type of work that QuickBase is really enabling us to respond to and really lean into that flexibility and adaptability as we move into the future. I think also it allows us to track longitudinal data, like very long-term data of our programs. I've talked a lot about moving around quickly, but we also have programs that we run for 3 years at a time. And being able to systematically collect that and look at it over a period of time is difficult unless you have a place to hold all that information. And so there's just so many ways that we can continue to build on our services, streamline our internal processes again, so that we can have our case managers focus on our clients, because that's really ultimately what is most important to us, is making sure that people have safe, affordable housing.
Great. Thanks, Annie. And Gibson?
First, I think based off of how we use QuickBase, we want to continue to improve upon our casework management. I think the tool that we build in terms of how we do casework has been really efficient within our system. We also use it for as we internal sort of employee metrics. So if people need days off, I think we want to continue using that for the basic administrative stuff. We want to improve upon it, just making sure that it continues to be more efficient. Because what we want to make sure is we continue reducing is dissatisfaction. We want to make sure that employees are happy with how we respond on issues. We want to continue improving and just making sure that folks continue to be happy with how we just respond to requests whenever certain things are an issue. Also, one thing that it enables us has also helped us to continue security. I think QuickBase enables us to have a good blanket of security, especially when it comes to dealing with folks' contact information, and that's something that we're continuously happy with, and we want to make sure that we continue doing that and just happy with that. And also cross collaboration. Gives us the ability to be more nimble, more accessible, and actually be able to work with more partners. Recently, we just started continue working with a library and looking for funding so we can help improve more hours within the library in terms of how folks can use some of those resources. So we also getting better with responsiveness in that capacity. So we want to continue building collaborations because at the end of the day, our goal is to improve how we provide services to our neighborhood councils and how we continue to engage that when it comes to working with elected officials' offices, other departments, other departments from other from the state and all the from the state and the county. So I think that's always the goal on our end.
Great, great. Thank you. Thank you both for sharing your future plans. Just super excited to hear about how you plan to continue to use QuickBase to really drive more efficiency within your programs. That actually concludes our session today. I want to thank you, Annie and Gibson, for joining us. Great discussion, super, super insightful. And for those attendees, we're super grateful for your participation in the journey of transformation at Empower. And now I'd like to jump to Q&A.